Welcome to the True You podcast. Today we have a new experience. Marty and I last week talked about, actually it was a couple of weeks we talked about using meditation as the topic. And I wasn't aware that Marty was going to prepare a presentation today during this meditation. And as it turns out, it ended up being a wonderful, wonderful conversation once I just relaxed into what he had to offer. So, Marty, what do you want to say about this?
So expect, as you listen to this episode coming up, that I'm gonna talk about it at first a little bit, and that will meld into a little bit of trying it out, and then Bill and I are gonna have a conversation about it all.
And I just notice, and you'll notice this too, that for me anyhow, you'll notice that my voice gets animated. You'll begin to hear my voice in it a bit, and it might be interesting if you're going to listen through the entire episode that you notice that I start out a little cautiously in trying to enter into the conversation after listening to Marty's presentation. And then once I find some ground to relate my own experience and the courage to admit that I struggle with meditation, the conversation gets quite lively. So I hope you'll listen and join us, and we'd love to hear from you and how this landed for you.
Enjoy
the episode. Welcome to the True You podcast. I'm Bill Tierney, a compassionate results coach. And this is my partner, Dr. Martin Kettlehut, Marty. Marty's an author, he's a coach, and he's having fun today, he said.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, so welcome, Marty. Today we're going to be talking about meditation, and between the two of us, Marty would be the expert in that area. So it might feel and sound a little bit like an interview today, although I think you have some things in mind, Marty, that might benefit the listener in the way of experience.
Yes. Well, and I'm glad that you said that. I do not consider myself an expert in meditation. I have been meditating for an hour a day since October of 1998. And so I do have some experience, but...
Well, wait, slow down. What? That's 27 years every single day for an hour of meditation.
Yeah.
That's really incredible.
Well, I'm a very disciplined person. It's one of the things that and sometimes I'm too disciplined.
Yeah.
But my point here is that there's a whole galaxy inside of us to explore. And so I don't feel like I'm like an expert in meditation, but I'm happy to share what I've learned.
I'd love to hear that. And if you don't mind, I want to, when questions come up and the flow allows it, I'd like to be able to ask you some questions about your experience. Is that all right?
Absolutely. So let's first just, why would one meditate? Why would you want to do that?
Mm-hmm.
What's the point, right? Especially in this busy world of ours. And it really it boils down to this. We meditate to recognize who we are. So it's a very appropriate topic for the True You podcast. Now, there are lots of misconceptions about meditation. Some people think that you have to be on a mountaintop or in a silent chamber, somewhere where you're not going to be disturbed in order to meditate. And the truth is, you can meditate while you're driving. You don't have to have your eyes closed to be meditating. And it will make you a better driver. And just to take an extreme example that some you probably wouldn't have thought of, but you can meditate in a meeting at work and get more out of that meeting than if you were constantly thinking about everything everybody was saying and that you want to say. Another misconception about meditation is that it's about the same as going for a run or listening to a good piece of music or even taking a nap. Those are all beneficial things to do for sure. But as I'm going to show in a minute, the core piece of meditation is to allow the mind to relax and be focused on just one thing. if possible, as much as possible. That's what provides the results, which again, I'm going to talk about more, but um, those are all great other activities, but they don't bring the same um, level of focus, and they don't allow that letting the mind to relax as much. And listening to a piece of music is a great thing to do, but most music is meant for you to focus on what's going on there and maybe even get your body moving to it. And that's great, but it's not meditation. And one last misconception I want to clean up right away is that people think that you have to stop thinking, that's what you're trying to do, is to get to the point where you're not thinking. That will happen, but it's not the point. And if that's what you're trying to do, you will never be meditating, because I think it's better to start with the assumption that the mind never stops. And you can still meditate, right? Because as soon as you get into that, it's like trying not to think of anything. Like, don't think about a pink elephant right now. You can't help but picture a pink elephant. It's the same thing. If you try and stop thinking altogether, you're going to constantly be thinking. So you will get to a point where, for a while, thought does cease, and it feels great, and it opens up insights. But that's not really what we're at. That's not the point. If you're trying to do that, you won't get to meditation. So even think about it. Even while you're sleeping, you don't stop thinking, right? Thinking does relax, and it moves out of the center of your focus. Like, your mind is still going, but as long as you're not identified with that content of the mind, like, yeah, I've got stuff in my mind, but that's not me. I have thoughts, and I'm not being them. That's meditation right there. That's the crux of it right there. So, like, you've heard of, many people have heard of mindfulness exercises. Like, and you can walk mindfully, and it slows you down really fast, because when you start to really pay attention to the foot hitting the ground and rolling forward and lifting, and then the other one as well, there's a lot to notice. The texture of the ground, the feel of the inside of the shoe, which muscles move when, right? There's a lot to be mindful of. Or making tea, like the famous Japanese tea ceremony, right? The point is to be so focused on this act of making tea that you're having thoughts, but you're not tending to them. They're on their own for a while. So when I say identify with your thinking, that probably is an odd way to say, that's not the way we talk. What do I mean by that? Well, obvious example is, like, you say, I'm a man, or I'm tired, or I'm a Democrat. I am that thing that I'm talking about. That's an obvious example. But then there are less obvious examples, like when somebody says, I don't like your sweater, and you get all offended, like they're talking about you. They're talking about their taste in sweaters. It has nothing to do with you. Right? But we get identified with that thought, right? I spent a lot of time as a boy identifying with my thoughts, in the sense that I needed approval. I needed to be appreciated. I needed to be acknowledged. And if not, then who am I? See, there's that identification with the thinking. What we actually explore in meditation is just I am. Just I am. I know that I am. And letting go of all those thoughts about being. Right? Just what if I just am? I just focus on that. Like, wow. And explore that. What is it to be alive? What is it to be with no predicate on the end? To be what? Just to be. So this gets back to something we were talking about last week about the difference between selfish and selfless. If you identify with your mind or your body and you're asked, let's say to volunteer at the food bank. If you're a mind or a body, you'd consider, well, I don't know, do I have time? Is that convenient? Right? These things about what you're going to have to do with your mind and your body. The perspective is on this isolatable part of my being, right? There are limited resources. Like your mind and your body only extend so far, can only hold so much, right? That capacity question we talked about 2 weeks
Right.
ago.
Mhm.
And so you're going to have naturally, you're going to have fears like about losing that identity. Am I safe doing that? Will they like me if I do that? Do I have what it takes to do that? Whatever that is, right? But now, if instead you identify, I'm just going to use an analogy here, like water in the ocean, right? This ocean of humanity that we are, if you could think of it that way, like it's a big thing that we're all participating in, this human experiment or the human evolution, right? If you identify with that, the self that is all that we're all a part of, then you see a wider and deeper perspective uh, on yourself and others, and in that there's more awareness, there's more compassion, there's more intelligence, more power as well, because you're connected to something that's infinitely greater than yourself. So let's just experiment with this.
Yeah, sounds good.
So if you're driving, then you just keep your eyes open and follow the instructions. And if you're not, you might want to close your eyes, because by eliminating all of that information of the sense of sight, it's easier to focus on everything else that's going on. But you can definitely meditate with your eyes open. It's harder, but you can do it. So first of all, get in touch. Begin to notice what you're tasting and smelling and hearing. Just become aware. Like you've been in those clothes all day, but now feel what it's like to be wearing those clothes. You're breathing this air in this room or in your car, but take a moment to smell it and notice its temperature and the subtle way it plays against your exposed skin. Taste the tastes in your mouth. Like, is lunch still there a little bit? And just notice, no judgment. We're just noticing the sensual world that we're a part of. You might notice tension in your body too. Places where your don't need to be using your muscles, and you could let them go right now. This stage of the meditation is about leaving the mind to the side and just noticing the physical environment that our senses bring to us. And you might notice the more you focus on that sensual data, that you're thinking less about what you have to do tomorrow, what happened yesterday. The more that your focus is here in the present moment on the sensual, the less you can think. It's just that's the way we're made. Now notice the part of you that's observing these stimuli, like the feel of the floor under your feet. That it's not the part that's essentially stimulated, it's the part that registers like, oh, cold air, right? Your hand might feel that, but the mind registers it. And though you can turn your awareness to these sensual stimuli as they come and they go, you can't see, taste, touch, or smell, or hear your awareness of those stimuli. Right? That's a different part of you, the part of you that registers the information. So just notice, okay, yeah, there's the stimuli hitting my foot, and then there's the thought, I can feel my foot. So now shift your attention to those thoughts, whatever thoughts are there. They could be about the sensual experience you're having, or they could be, thoughts that are still left over from your day so far. Just notice what's in your mind. Like you were looking at the words on a chalkboard. Oh yeah, I have this thought. Yes, I'm thinking about that. So just see the contents of your own mind. And again, although you are aware of these thoughts, the awareness of them is something other than the thought, right? I can see that I'm worried about picking up groceries on the way home that I might forget, right? That's a thought. But then there's the you that notices that thought, just like the you that notices the stimuli is not the you that is stimulated. So that we have three parts of you now. There's the sensual you, there's the thinking you, and there's your awareness. The awareness to all these other things, sensual stimuli and thoughts, they all pass through awareness. You're aware of the contents of your mind, but you're not your mind. You're aware of the sensual stimuli, and you're not that sensual stimuli. Just take that in and experience that difference between the you that is sensual, the you that is thinking, and the you that notices all of this. What is awareness, if not an object of the senses or a thought in the mind? What is that? I say, and I'm not alone in this, that's who you are. Your awareness. And that's why we meditate.
To know who you are.
To know who you are, your awareness. To be aware, to be yourself.
Thank you, Marty. And I'm wondering, are you open to have a discussion about this now?
Of course.
Okay.
That's what we're here for.
Well, thanks for being so prepared and presenting all that. I was interested as you began. I wasn't aware that you had prepared a presentation as you did, and a couple of times I was going to jump in. Then I realized I had a sense. Oh, he's actually got a presentation to complete here. He's got ideas he wants to share. So I held back, and I'm wondering if it would be possible for you to go back to the first few points that you made, because each one of them, a few of them, really prompted my curiosity and interest to ask you about.
And just for future, I appreciate your kindness and your politeness in not interrupting me with your comments, but in the future, feel free to interrupt. If I have something prepared, you can interrupt me.
Okay. All right.
That's
Well, we just haven't, I don't think we've had that experience before. I don't think that we've come into an episode where you had something prepared to present. And
I
I knew,
know. I wanted to be prepared today.
I knew that you had notes. Yeah. So great, great. I hope that listener got value from that. Um, yeah. So you and I worked together for just a little bit. I asked you to help me. This has been at least a couple of years ago with Nora, and you worked with Nora, and you were working with me because you made an offer to us that you would help us to begin to practice meditating. And I
Uh-huh.
found it very difficult to do. I found it very, very difficult. And I'm just noticing that I've often noticed this, that it doesn't seem like my nervous system wants to sit still long enough to do that.
Nobody's does it first. Absolutely.
Nobody's does.
Well, it hasn't been trained. Our nervous systems aren't trained for this. It is a challenge. It's a big challenge. It takes a lot of practice. So I've been where you're at, or where you just said you were then.
Well, it's
You
still
might.
true. It's still true today.
Mhm.
An example, I really devoted myself. I think I may have mentioned this to you before, to Dr. Joe Dispenza's programs. And
Mhm.
I can't remember exactly the program that I purchased, the course that he provided that I purchased, but it had me meditating. I want to say at least 2, sometimes 3 hours a day.
Wow.
And I stuck with it for a while. And I kept hoping that if I would just stick with it and follow the instructions and do what he was suggesting that I do, that I could train myself into meditating. And the
Mhm.
reason that I wanted to meditate was because I was pretty unhappy. I was suffering a lot. And many people that I talked to said, meditate. If you're suffering, meditate.
Mhm.
Um, but I found that meditation created suffering for me. I, I suffered a lot trying to make myself meditate. I
Mhm.
didn't have that experience as much with you. And yet, when we were working together for, I think, maybe a few weeks, um, it was pleasant. I enjoyed it. However, um, even then, my nervous system found it really difficult to sit still and to devote very much time to it. Currently, I have the capacity to sit still for 5 or 10 minutes and meditate.
Mhm.
I just don't have the
Mhm.
willingness to.
Mhm.
So that's my experience, and I'm guessing that for listeners that have hung in this long in this, if they're like me, they may have had a hard time hanging in this long to listening to ideas about meditation, because my mind's really busy. It wants to travel elsewhere. For a while there, I closed my eyes and was listening to your instruction, and I actually started falling asleep. And my mind was no longer paying any attention to what you were saying. So I
Mhm.
had one part
Mhm.
that, oh, you're falling asleep. Wake up. Bring your attention back here again. So as I'm sharing all this with you, I'm curious about how all this is landing for you, and if there's a way.
It's I've worked with many people on meditation, both learning from them and teaching meditation, and these are all very normal
Mhm.
and typical things. That's why I wanted to address this question. Like, well, why why would I bother to do
Well,
that?
especially when it's so hard. When it's
Oh,
something, it's not something. It's not. I think I'll go take a nap, as you pointed out. It's not like I'm going to go for a run. Even I'm not going to go look. It's not like I'm going to go lay down on the ground and close my eyes for 10 minutes or an hour. It is conscious, focused awareness. It sounds like.
yes.
Yeah.
Hmm. That's right. That's right. Hmm. And there's no you don't. I'm not saying anybody should meditate, right? Or there's something wrong with you because you're having this response. All of this is normal. I think the first thing that happens if you do decide it's something that you want, and you've said it isn't, but for those listening who feel like, maybe there is something for me here, I want to try it. then the first thing to do is to notice what it is about it that doesn't work for your system. Notice that. What is that? Is there something to attend to there so that you could spend more time with yourself? Maybe not, but look and see. I mean, that's in the meditation, right? Meditation is really what has taught me to meditate more than anybody or any book. It's the practice itself has taught me. I know my mind is going to do certain things and be very uncomfortable with this practice. And so I've learned what that's about and how to attend to it so that I can just be more at peace again. So it's going to bring up stuff that it always brings up stuff for people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the exact stuff that needs to be brought up for us to come home, to put it in a certain way, to come home to self, to come home to who we really are. And that's why, when I first learned, we each had a tutor. And there was a class where we were learning about meditation and philosophy that goes with it. And then we went off to practice with our tutor, and the tutor would help with these things. Your sitting is, you just can't sit. Okay, well then maybe we need different pillows for you, or to do some stretching exercises so that it doesn't hurt to sit in that way for so long. And we attend to those things so that the path opens up for you to meditate, if that's something you want. Nobody needs to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Choice is a huge factor when it comes to meditation, and my resistance when I don't feel like I have a choice definitely gets in the way. The first time I felt like I should meditate was when I was going through the 12-step program, and as you know, the 11th step is the sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. Do I have that right? It's
exactly
yeah.
right.
And so, gosh, I didn't know what meditation was or how to do it. And I was at odds with God and church and religion and prayer. So this was a big, big challenge for me. And one that what I actually settled for and called meditation was more direct, intentional contemplation.
That's great.
Consideration of in a very structured way, and that I not only can do but really benefit from. In fact, when a moment ago you were talking about what it's like to meditate, it sounded like you were describing the process of noticing inside the influence of my parts and getting curious about that.
If you are noticing the influence of your parts, you are meditating.
Well, I guess I love meditating then.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I had a friend who said, I don't like to meditate, but like on a beautiful, clear fall day like this, when the sun is coming in and the air is clear, I like to just sit right in the sun and feel that warmth. I'm like, that's meditation.
Yeah. Well, what a relief. What a relief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Tierney. Rachel Fink Parks and I have teamed up to work with successful coaches who want to learn how to integrate the IFS model into their coaching practice. You can learn more at elevateifscoaching.com. That's elevateifscoaching.com. Now back to the episode.
Yeah, as long as you are aware of your thoughts, aware of the sensations, right? Not thinking about them, you're meditating.
So maybe for those that are listening that can relate to my experience of how difficult I've found meditating to be, as long as I've thought about meditation in the way that I have, like following the clear instructions of Dr. Joe Dispenza, or sitting in stillness for just as long as I can tolerate, then
None of this is meditation. None of that. So what you were working so hard at wasn't meditation.
Yeah. Gosh. See, I believe you. I believe that how you think about meditation is probably just exactly what meditation is. And yet I think I've gotten a lot of really bad information about it. Stories about instructors who, hit their students on the head when they don't meditate right. And
No, it's like that moment. I was in a conference call this morning, and there were a number of people on the call, and it was a heady conversation. And at one moment, I noticed that while the discussion went on, the leader of the meeting, she just let her eyes close. And I could tell she was just taking it in, but eliminating one sensory input.
yes.
She was meditating on the conversation, bringing more focus,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's as easy as just like, okay, that's what I want to focus on, not what I'm seeing, but what I'm hearing.
Yes.
And I'm aware that that's what I'm focusing on. That's meditation.
Now, this will sound like what I'm about to share. It sounds like about the opposite of what I've been sharing so far, but I'm going to share it because it's what's true. I recognize that when I shift from one focus to another, one investment of my attention and time to another, especially as a coach, an IFS coach, it's really important for me to leave the past 5 minutes ago and arrive into the present moment. So prior to getting onto a coaching session with a client or a group of clients, I'm very intentional about that. And selfishly, what I will do at the beginning of the group sessions is ask my participants to join me for 3-4 minutes. And then I'll guide them through a meditation. Essentially, what that meditation sounds like is me describing what I'm doing. They either follow along or they don't. And in fact, I give them that invitation to remember that they're a choice and they can do whatever they wish to do. But if they want to join me in meditation, I ask them to, for example, just notice where their feet are, notice their body posture, notice how much effort they're putting into holding their body up. See if they can make adjustments so that there's a less effort. Uncross legs and arms just to feel your connection to the earth.
All of which is building awareness.
Yes. And then ultimately we'll end up with just notice breath. No need to change or to anything with your breath, but notice it, and notice that by noticing it, it changes sometimes.
By the way, people will tell you, or they've told me, that's so hard to just see the breath without changing it. Every time I notice my breath, I feel like I need to deepen it or quiet it or do something to it. That's a great example of the challenge and the beauty of meditation.
Well, even that, and maybe even especially that, is noticing, and that's something that I noticed just by taking these 4 or 5 minutes before we actually begin anything in a group, is that every single time I brought my attention to my breath, it changed. Sometimes I became aware that the reason it changed was because there was a part of me that thought I should be breathing more deeply.
Yeah.
And that part brought its influence in such a way that it felt like it automatically changed my breath.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's accurate.
And the next thing that we do in my groups is, after we've done that internal meditation, we do what I call an external check-in. And because we're focused on the internal family systems model, and we look at everything through the lens of IFS, during that 1 to 2 minute check-in, depending on the size of the group and what we have to do that day, participants then will report what they noticed during that meditation time. I noticed that my breath did change, or I noticed that as soon as you began giving us instructions, I went somewhere else. I Didn't listen to a thing you said. I noticed that I have parts that couldn't let go of what was happening an hour ago. And all of that to me is just amazing and beautiful that my clients, the participants in my groups, have that much awareness, that much focused attention and awareness. Well, I'm going to shift a little bit. So if you have something to comment about what I've just said, I can come back to this.
I want to, on what you just said, there are some mornings when I get up for that hour meditation, and I'm thinking the whole time practically. I go back to, I use a mantra. I'll say more about that if you want, but because it's a very powerful tool and it's simple, brilliant tool. But I'll start the mantra, then I'm noticing, oh, I got to figure out this thing, and oh, I'm now meditating, go back to the mantra, and then, oh, I'm thinking about this trip I'm going on. I get to the end of the hour, and I think I haven't accomplished anything. Why did I bother? But even if there's that one moment, sometimes it's just like a drop of meditative energy, of self energy, connecting with, so like, oh, I recognize that I haven't been meditating. I've been thinking. Even if just that one little drop could give you perspective on value perspective for the whole day. So you don't have to sit there for 2-3 hours in no thinking to have the effect of meditation. It could just be a little moment of connection to self. That could be all you need that day. And that's beautiful, not to be.
Yeah. Boy, so much to talk about here. Now that we brought it into the realm of how I can relate to it, from the awareness of IFS. Before IFS, the meditation was noticing thinking in rather than thinking.
Yes.
And the influence that helped me with that was the work of Byron Katie, who brought to my attention. She said it this way: "Do you believe everything that you think?" And I think I had probably heard that question before, but after having an experience and observing her experience, her process with others, in a way to help me integrate what I had just observed, she asked that question, not to me personally, but to everybody in the audience where I was attending this workshop. Do you believe everything that you think? And that landed as a really profound question for me. Really, I thought about it for the first time. And my answer was, I think so. I think I believe everything I think. Is there another option? And her way to demonstrate that, yes, in fact, there is a different option, is to say, notice if you are suffering in any way. And now notice that suffering is very likely associated with a thought that you're thinking that argues with reality. And now step away from the thought. This is not the way Byron Katie talks about it, but this is the way I talk about what I learned there. Now step away from that thought and notice that you're having a thought. You're not thinking that thought. Now, she didn't distinguish where the thought was coming from like IFS does. But she said, now separate yourself, basically. Separate yourself from the thought and look at it.
Who would you be without the thought?
Well, first of all, is it true? Is the thought even true? Because I was automatically believing every thought that I had, my answer was always yes at first. That's why she's clever enough to answer question 2, where she goes to the absolute.
Is it
Can you absolutely know it's true? So in that way, I began to meditate, and I didn't even realize it. Interestingly, at the very same time, my friend Alan and I were going to places up on the South Hill here in Spokane where people were gathering together and meditating. And it was nice to do this with him and with this new community of people. For me, the greatest value is being with people and not being alone, and being in that. And now what I understand as I look back on it is to be in that self energy that was being generated, it seemed, just in the connection between people.
That's exactly right. My best, in other words, deepest, most real, deep, I'll just say that my deepest meditations have always been in group because of all the self energy that's being
Yeah, that's great.
generated and connected. And that my best meditations have always been with a group.
That's so interesting because these groups that I do, whether it's parts work practice, where we have anywhere from 40 to 100 people gathering to build trust-based relationships with their parts and to practice doing that together, or
Mhm.
groups of 2 or 3 or 6 or 8 that I have in my paid groups, that's what I sense. There's just, and I can just rest and trust it. Like the egoic Bill, the coach that shows up sometimes, when I catch that that's what's going on, and then I just relax and rest into the energy that's in the space that we've created together, great things happen in that session.
Amazing. Yes. Yes.
So now I'm having the thought, notice I'm not thinking the thought, I'm having the thought that the way this episode began, I was taken by surprise that you haven't had a presentation for us.
I presented last time we talked too.
Oh, I didn't notice it last time.
3 weeks ago, we said, oh, the next 2 weeks we want to talk about
Selfish
self-service and then meditation. And so I wanted to be prepared. I was reading from notes last time too.
Oh, well, I didn't pick up on that last time. Yeah, we ended up, I believe, having the same kind of experience because I recall the second half of the episode, I felt more engaged in the first half of it. Yeah, when I was actually participating with you rather than just consuming what you were presenting. Yeah,
Right.
so I'm having the thought, and
Of course, yeah.
what? Of course.
I'm the same way. I'm much more alive when I'm involved rather than just watching somebody present.
Right. So, I want to thank all of our listeners for listening today.
So, by way of saying goodbye, I would just say enjoy those moments when you're noticing life. Just give yourself full permission to be in the noticing, the awareness of what you're feeling, the awareness of what someone is saying, the awareness of your body. Just enjoy that, because that awareness is the source of everything.
And what if that's what meditation is all about? And it sounds like that's exactly the point you've made today.
Exactly.
Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week. We appreciate who you are, that you would be listening to this podcast, and want to acknowledge all those parts of you that yearn for the experience of the true you.
If you like this episode, click like, share it with others, and be sure to subscribe. Listen again next week for the newest episode.
Check show notes for a transcript and a link to resources, including a link to let us know if you'd like to be a guest on our podcast.
Thank you for listening and going on this journey with us back to the true you.